Hello! It's been so long since I posted a video. I'm so glad to be back. A few things have happened since I've been gone. I celebrated a birthday, I got vaccinated, my sister and my friend and we went on a trip. It was so fun. Job interviews via Zoom. They're real. I had a few of those. Yeah, but I'm glad to be back and I'm here to share with you some of the books I've read while I was MIA. So here we go. So one of the books I read was Dominicana by Angie Cruz, and this book, I loved it. Surprise, surprise. Here we follow a 15-year-old girl. She's married off by her family to an older man, and through that marriage, she's able to immigrate to New York. And this is a coming of age story. It's an immigrant story. We deal with love and loyalty, pressures of society, and it's gorgeously written. It's heartbreaking. It's everything I wanted in a book. I also read Bridgerton and I watched the show. I could not find the copy and I don't care. And I think that perfectly depicts my sentiments on the book. So I read it because I wanted to watch the show and compare it. The book was fine. It wasn't anything all that great. So much so that I don't know how it became a show. That sounds a little harsh. It just doesn't, I don't know why that story, like there's so much Regency romance. I'm just curious to know why this story was like the one. Don't know. I also saw the show with my sister. We binge watched it and she loved it. I liked it. And I truly think that this is one of the first cases where I think that reading the book beforehand might sour the show for you. I think that I would have enjoyed the show more if I just watched it, I guess. And the show's a whole other enchilada to break down. But yeah, read Bridgerton. It was fine. It's actually kind of compulsive to read it. So I didn't necessarily feel like I was dragging myself through it, but it just was. It was fine. Another book I read was Girls with Bright Futures, and this was just like an impulsive buy at the bookstore. I just saw it and I went for it. So the back says 3 women, 3 daughters, and a promise that they'll each get what they deserve. So we're in this very elite school in Seattle. It's the girls' senior year and they're all vying for the last spot at Stanford. And one of them is not rich. She's incredibly smart though, and they think she's gonna get that last spot, and then the other moms and the whole community goes a little cray. There's an accident. I'm not gonna say too much. Go for it. It has like a feel kind of like I think the author's name is Liane Moriarty, something like that. The woman who wrote The Husband's Secret and Big Little Lies. That flow of like this community that on the surface looks really nice, but you look behind the curtain and they're actually kind of messed up and very dark. Not as good as The Husband's Secret though. I didn't read Big Little Lies, but people love that one. So yeah, similar flow to that, but not as good. The next book I read is Infinite Country by Patricia Engel. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. So in this novel, we follow this family that's been separated. Part of them lives in the US. The other part of the family lives in Colombia. And there's this twisting and interweaving of perspectives as they try and get back together. And I don't want to say how that happens just because I went into it pretty blindly and I appreciated it. I will tell you though that one of the children, the daughter in Colombia, has gotten herself into trouble and she escapes and is trying to make her way back. I would just go for it if you're interested in reading it. without knowing too much. If you don't want to hear anything about the ending, please skip. But in the ending, it ends a little too neatly, and it ends a little too, it's just a very happy ending. And as we know, that's not always the immigrant story. And I battled with being happy for this fictional family that has a very happy ending, but then also being like, ugh. Next, I read The Two Lives of Lydia Bird. I technically did not finish this book, and wow, I had such high hopes for this book. The title is fantastic. So the premise is that this young woman is engaged, and her fiance tragically dies one day, very unexpectedly, and she's dealing with the aftermath of that loss. And she finds out that in her sleep, she sees him. And it's not just that she sees him in her dreams, it's literally this alternate reality where he is alive and well. And she's living these two lives, the one where she's awake and she has to grieve her fiance, and the one in her dreams where he's alive and well. Sounds fantastic, no? But something about reading it, I just could not. And I made it like 70-80% of the way, and the entire time I just wanted to stop reading it until I just put it down. Yeah, and I think the reason why this book was so hard to get into is because the characters are so bland. They are so cookie cutter figures of real people. Obviously they're characters, but like of a character that it's so shallow and hard to invest myself in. So then that makes it hard to like fully like the romance aspect of it, or to really root for the character. It works in a sense that you can like really put yourself into that character. But yeah, like every character is the same. I can't tell you a single characteristic of any character. I can barely even tell you the names. I know Lydia Bird because it's in the title. The next book I read is The Death of Vivek Oji. Now, if you've seen my video, my very first video, where I reviewed the best and worst books that I read in 2020, you will recognize this book because it was one of the worst. But I tried to read it again. Noelle Gallagher here on YouTube, she reviewed this book and she loved it so much that I thought, all right, I'll try again. I was really thrown off by the relationship between the cousins in this book when I first read it. So I thought, let me try again. I know that this is coming, and that's part of reading. Like, we don't have to like the characters, but if they're written well, they're gonna make us feel stuff because maybe they don't do things the way we would. So I tried it again. The writing, of course, is beautiful. This author is incredible. And I thoroughly loved the book. So I'm glad I went back. There are weird things about it that I just, but it's still so beautiful, and it's heartbreaking, and it's touching. It's gorgeous. You'd think that with a title like The Death of Vivek Oji, you know what's coming and you know what's gonna happen at the end. But wow. Twisty plots? Yeah, until literally the very last page. I really like this book, and I'm glad I read it again. Another book I read was The Loneliest Girl in the Universe, and it's a YA book about exactly that. A girl who lives completely alone on this spaceship, and she is traveling through space. She has been her entire life, on her way to Mars to start a new civilization. And part of the way through, do I want to say this? I do. Part of the way through, her communication with her home base is disconnected, and she learns that something's happening back on Earth. Things get weird, but she finds companionship. You'll find out if you read it. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this book, and it was very different. I think that I would have loved it even more if I read it as a teenager. Because I think my cynical adult self was just like, ugh, for to some of the parts of it. But it's a really great book, and wow, does this author do like anxiety really well, and like that icky feeling of just like someone being over your shoulder. Very well done. Another book I read that does that very well is I'm Thinking of Ending Things. And I truly don't know what to tell you about this book, because I want to tell you nothing other than read it. The only thing I will say is that it is so creepy, and it just made me feel so icky and so like someone was breathing down my neck. It's not a scary book in the sense that like an axe murderer is chasing you. Well, I probably shouldn't say that, because let's say there is some of that, but there's so much more. It's wild. You just need to read it. It's not long at all. I almost read it in a whole day, but I could not read it in the dark. Yeah, so just read it. I'm Thinking of Ending Things. 10 out of 10. The last book I want to share is very much not that energy, and it's the book I'm currently reading. It's called Arsenic and Adobo. This was my April pick for book of the month, and she has a little dog called Longanisa. So in this book, we follow a Filipino main character, which I love. I don't think I've ever read a book with a Filipino protagonist. So she works at her family restaurant. Her ex-boyfriend comes in to eat. He dies, and she is the main suspect because she cooks the food. And she's the only suspect, and she feels, I mean, obviously she believes she's innocent, unless there's gonna be a twist that proves to us that she's not. But she's now on the hunt to figure out what actually happened to this guy, because she's the only suspect. She wants to save her family's business and clear her name. So it's very cheeky, and there's lots of beautiful recipes in the book, and just all around goodness. So that's all from me. These were some of the books I read recently, and what I'm currently reading, and I'll catch you in the next one.